Oh, hello. Well, what do we have here? Welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope that you are able to find some relaxation this evening. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to cover some more gratitude work, and have some casual conversation. So we have our piano workspace here. We'll bring our notebook over and start our music. Thank you again for your time and space and energy. You can hopefully get comfy. And so before we get started covering why we do gratitude, it is an exercise like flexing a muscle, strengthening our orientation towards things that we can appreciate in our lives, things that can change the course of our day, even on the roughest days, and make a good day even better. To notice what in our environment, what inside ourselves that we can be grateful for. I can't really imagine how that would be a waste of time. If anything, would be a productive use of time. And so this has actually been a very lovely exercise for me in this process. I don't know if that's a nice sound or not. But so before we get started, I would like you to think of one thing. It can be grand, it can be small, it can be something that's unique to you that you appreciate today, something that you encountered with someone else that made you smile or made you think, maybe a realization you had today, or just something that was beautiful that you observed. Taking a moment to think about one thing that you can appreciate for the day. And write that down in your mind. I suppose today I reflected on different things that we can see. I think I might like to start a few of these exercises with different senses and things to appreciate in those senses. So today I can discuss sight. The gift of sight. So it's funny, you can see things with your eyes, and you can also see them in your mind's eye. We can close our eyes and see pictures in our mind, and it can be pretty remarkable. I imagine that we can see things that are compilations of images, something that might not actually exist in reality, but we can take our understandings of things, maybe things we've seen them before, and form something completely unique in our minds. I guess that's a part of creativity in that essence. It's pretty cool, huh? I know for me, I like to plan events or conversations even, or I will sit and daydream and imagine not just conversations. I just said that, but it could be imagining a dance routine, or the way I'd like a song to sound, or just a fantasy. I can use that with mind's eye, which is something to be very grateful for. I have to admit, I tend to be indulgent when it comes to daydreaming to a fault, but I have had many positive experiences with daydreaming and all the images and beautiful sights I've seen that way. But mainly I was thinking about some of the wonderful things that we can see in our environments, and just how astounding those can be. I think it might be 1/5 of our brains have space dedicated to vision, and that might include the mind's eye, or part of it. I'd actually have to confirm that, but I do know a good portion of the brain and the back of our brains dedicated to vision. It's been a sense that has really helped us. We're not necessarily the most focused of species. We don't have the most acute vision. A hawk, for example. This is my brilliant drawing of a hawk. Wait, there's its claws coming out. A hawk can see quite far down to the ground and have incredible vision. And there are species that can perceive things in the environment that we can't see, different parts of I'm not quite sure if it's a visual spectrum, or there's a spectrum of wavelengths, from radio waves to ultraviolet waves, microwaves. Getting them mixed up a bit, but there might be infrared. There's different areas or phenomenon in the environment, I'll call it phenomenon, that humans are not able to see, that other animals can perceive through sight. Pretty remarkable. And so I mention that to say, even though we might not have an acute sense of sight, we can see color brilliantly. I think maybe you've heard the phrase that dogs or canines are colorblind. That's not entirely true to my knowledge. They do see color, but in a more muted fashion than humans do. So humans can see quite a broad and vibrant range of colors. Think about, it depends on how you spell color, but think about all the miraculous colors that you might have encountered today alone, and maybe imagine the different colors that exist across the world. There's some extremely vibrant, and even the colors that are muted, that create variance and interest for our eyes to see. And all over the world, you can head to the poles of the earth and see aurora borealis in the sky. Waves, I think they're caused by magnetic activity of some sort. Could be also solar activity. Causes this is a lot of ad-lib. I make this up in part as I go, so I do have to fact check some things, but regardless of that, the waves that we see in the sky in the north and south and north poles, and sometimes, if we're lucky, even further down or closer to the center. There are just gorgeous colors that can come in the sky, green and blue, sometimes other colors too. And they can be such a treat to observe. People will travel deliberately to see Aurora Borealis. I think about, I've never seen, but the soil in Iceland. Just think about, you might think about dirt that you see every day and might not think it's very special. The soil in Iceland is a black color. It might have something to do with the type of nutrients that's in the soil. And I've heard someone say that it almost looks like an alien land because the soil and just the outlay of the land can be quite striking. So you have that, and then you have some of the incredibly vibrant colors of tropics and rainforests. There's just some birds and amphibians and probably even reptiles or snakes that have just these vibrant colors. And so in many times those bright colors draw us to them. But in the case of a snake, for example, if we see red and yellow, white and black, I can't remember the order. Again, just something I've heard, but there's an order of colors in snake. I think that can be helpful in determining if it's somebody to keep a safe distance from. But seeing those colors in snakes is a good way for us to say, nope, I'm gonna go for a walk over there somewhere. And so that might have been helpful for survival. And seeing bright colors of different foods, seeing movement in animals for people who hunted animals. Some really important functions there, but we can perceive and pick out the fresh color of flowers and fruits and vegetables really, really well. I don't know why. I think circles are a good representation of fruit. Oh, maybe orange, maybe a plum, an avocado. Just being able to see these vibrant colors, berries and different species, different foods that we can consume. It's a good sign. I heard many years ago that we're actually very drawn to the color green. More so than any other. Was an astronomer that said that. Again, I'd have to fact check, but it's something that stood out to me because I assumed that the color we would see most strongly would be red. But I think what she meant was that our eyes are drawn heavily to green. Red certainly stands out, but I think the color green is in being pleasing. And she said she wished that she would see more people wear the color green. I suppose that color would orient us to different plants that might give off vegetation or food that we can eat. It would orient us to vegetation that would have a nutritional benefit for us. So maybe taking a look at some green sometime. Could be incorporating it in a shirt, in an accessory, something in the home. If you notice, I noticed lately that a lot of YouTubers, especially if they have an aesthetic background, if it's a talking head kind of video, they'll have a plant in the background. There's something, might be a minimalist background, white or some neutral color, and then there's a potted plant or several potted plants. That pop of green can really give a very easily satisfying visual in that video. So something to think about. Red and green, of course, both work very well together, not just for certain holidays, but they're complementary colors, so they have the right amount of contrast. Something I've learned, if you're a Photoshop user, if you're wanting to find, or even, it might be helpful even if you're doing some sort of color planning, color scheme. If you're looking at the color wheel, looking at every single color that we know in existence, starting from red, going orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, purple. Turns out black and white and gray are shades. When you come up around the color wheel, I think you're getting into red again. It might be purpley pinks, but sometimes pink is more of a combination of adding white to red. So anyways, with the with the color wheel, if you have a specific color at the top, because there's 360 degrees in a wheel, 360, if you have a specific color you like and you want to find a color that looks nice with it, you can find out what degree that color corresponds to on the wheel and then look at the exact complementary color. So if you divide 360 by 2, it's 180 degrees. So if red and green are complementary colors, if I picked degree number 1 and it's a red on the color wheel, then I would go to degree 181 and it would be some sort of green. And these can be very complementary colors. You can even divide the wheel into 3s, so that would be different 120 groups, and you can find a very lovely set of complementary colors that balance each other out well. So that's just something I've discovered recently in trying to find colors that look nice together, and my purpose has been for looking at thumbnails on YouTube, but I imagine it could serve many other purposes. Maybe planning a wardrobe, planning decorative purposes, styling, product development, advertisement. Probably the list goes on and on. And I think this is useful because when I have looked at something, not quite understanding why a contrasting color like red and green didn't look so great together, it might be because it doesn't quite hit. It's a little bit too, it might be a lot warmer or colder than the original color I picked. So there's different methods of finding complementary colors. Wow, that was a tangent. So going back to color, it's really lovely to think about all the wonderful colors that you can observe. Maybe ask yourself one that you've seen today, something that you might take for granted. Maybe how a stop sign alerts you to its presence, that bright red saying stop, stop. And that can help with safety. Or how gorgeous clouds can look when they take on the pigment, when they reflect some of the blue or gray in the sky, or even the colors of the sunset, how it can flush the clouds with a stunning hue, purples and pinks, oranges, and even greens and yellows, blues. Stunning. Could be different wildlife species in your environment. Could be something human-made. I love seeing all the variety in fabrics and makeup. So many different lovely shades to play with and fabrics. And you can see how we take fashion, and a lot of it can be inspired by nature. I think I've seen leopard print come in and out of style over and over again. And I find zebras to be so incredibly pretty. I think they're kind of majestic. It's beautiful to see their stripes. I like their sound too. That's another note, but zebras indeed are, I think, lovely to look at. Interesting note. I heard once that zebras, they function, I'm not sure if it's herd there's this, I think, a special word for a group of zebras. And the way they evade predators is because their stripes are so, I guess, vibrant, and the way that they move in and around one another, it can be difficult for predators to determine what one individual zebra is. It's hard to see where one zebra is going. So I think there was a time where a group studying zebras, or scientists, they might have marked a zebra with a red mark to be able to say, that's David, the zebra, or Jackson, the zebra. That zebra became a lot more prone to predation because they stood out from their group. So the way zebras look, if you've ever seen a video of zebras, maybe I encourage you to take a look. It's almost like kind of the way that it looks when you see a mirage, when you see that kind of evaporation type of image. When zebras move in and around each other, it's almost like flowing water in a way. It's like a wave of different stripes. It's pretty cool. And so that seems to be an advantage to living longer. And so I don't think we mark our zebra friends anymore. Maybe we do, but I don't know. There might be a different method of doing that so that they don't stand out that way. So going back to fabrics and these things, it's very interesting to see how we've taken so much inspiration from nature in what we determine to be beautiful and what to adore in ourselves as humans. So, moving on from visual, if there's anything else you want to think about that might be beneficial in your mind, picture it. And we'll focus on a few other things just to move out of the sensory, and something in, I guess, a human-made objects I'm grateful for is some of the conveniences that we have to protect ourselves against the weather. So if you're entering winter season right now, think about how wonderful a good coat can be. Good coat. I guess you can't see that too well. A good coat, depending on the needs, something that might help protect you from the elements, whether it's deflecting rain or keeping you from getting damp, to insulating you against the cold. A good coat, a lovely set of mittens or gloves, some toasty socks. There are even these packets, I think they might be carbon activated, where you snap them and they can help heat up, keep your hands and toes. They're inserts for your hands and your feet. Those can be a real treat if you're having to be outdoors for a long period of time. And if you're in a hotter climate, then when you're having to be outdoors, having breathable clothing allows your skin to breathe, and maybe that's free flowing, that can still be very flattering, but allows you to be a bit more comfortable than maybe material that's stiff or thick or that might not absorb sweat. There's even UV protected clothing. UV protection. It's pretty cool, huh? To help protect the skin against UV rays. Pretty cool. So, some impressive and stylish things that we have, and just takes one really good coat, one really good set of mittens, one really good set of socks to kind of tide you through a particular season. Might be good to have a backup of the mitten and socks, but investing in one really quality item can be more than enough to keep you comfortable. So for that today, I'm grateful. I really don't like the feeling of really stiff and uncomfortable fingers if it gets too cold, so having a good pair of mittens and keeping my toes nice and warm, even having a pair of boots that helps lock in heat can be lovely. And when it's warm out, I can sweat a fair amount. So having breathable clothing that doesn't stain so easily if I sweat under my arms, that can be really lovely, or that's easy to clean. Sometimes there are some fabrics, I don't know if you noticed, but they cling to certain smells. And no matter how much you scrub, or no matter your own self or the clothes, so having fabric that obviously there's not much you can do if you put it on and you're smelly, but if you develop some smell throughout the day, having a fabric that really helps with that. That's just been my lot in a silly inconvenience I've had since, I suppose, middle school. So thank you for these protective and in many cases visually appealing accessories that help us to function outdoors. Because can you imagine? So not just for a stylish aspect, but for those of us who work outdoors, for those of us who want to have recreation outdoors, for those of us who need to commute and we live maybe in an area with inclement weather, or areas where even just different parts of the north or south, winters can be so harsh that the temperatures can be dangerous. So the fact that we can go outdoors and stay outdoors for long periods because of these protective materials is wonderful. And when it gets really hot, I know we have different standards of how we want to expose ourselves outdoors. So having breathable clothing, functional clothing for hot weather that might protect our skin or allow us to come and go in different areas and be dressed well. It's wonderful too. I love sun dresses in the summertime. I feel like they're flowy and can even choose some with long sleeves, but having some flow to the dress where it's not so restrictive allows freedom of movement. I like wide-legged pants for that similar reason. Flowy pants, flowy garments, flowy skirts. And that can be quite a relief if it's really hot outside and maybe wanting to choose a particular style. So thank you for these things. And I'll close with a couple other things I thought about today. Never a bad time to be grateful for family, no matter who you have assigned as your family. Thank you for our family, for future family, for past family, for those that feel like home. Thank you. It's always good to remember the most critical parts of our social networks, and family isn't as tight of a term as it used to be. Family used to, I think, and it can still refer to immediate family members, but I believe that we can design our families if that's what suits us, if that is what is the best fit. And so thank you to wonderful family members for your support, for the lessons that you've shared, for the company you share, for the laughter, for games, for tears, for hugs and kisses. Thank you. For the silly fights and the makeups. Thank you for new ideas and feedback, even if we don't want to hear it. And also for the encouragement. Thank you for people who will have your back. Thank you. That will stand up for you even when you're against you. Standing up for you and that love you very much. Thank you. Well, I think that's a good place to end today. Thank you so much for the gift of sight. We focused a bit on color today as an aspect of sight to be very grateful for. Thank you for the brilliant colors of the land and the sea, natural and non-naturally made. Thank you for the abundance, the amount of color that we have to us and that we continue to discover. Thank you for protective garments or helpful garments, garments that allow us to function and be comfortable. And thank you to our loved ones. Thank you for being here. And so that concludes today, our gratitude exercise. Here's hoping that you have some relaxation in your day and that you've been able to identify even just one thing to be grateful for today. Thank you for your space, for your time. Sending heart.